In New Orleans, I found jars of human organs. In Seattle, thousands of human teeth.
Before we start, hit subscribe if you want more stories like this. Drop a like and comment where you're watching from. Let's get into it. I am Gregor Robertson, and I have been serving as a cargo inspector for the Port Police for about 12 years. I have worked in 3 different states, inspected countless shipments, and seen every kind of contraband you can imagine. Drugs, weapons, counterfeit goods, illegal animals. You name it, I've found it hidden in shipping containers. However, there was one shipping company I encountered at all 3 ports where I worked. It was a company that shouldn't even exist, a company transporting illogical cargoes, and by the time I figured out what they were really doing, it was already too late. This is that story. In 2008, I was working for the Port of New Orleans Harbor Police. New Orleans had just started recovering from Katrina, and the port was coming back to life. Cargo volume was increasing every month as the city rebuilt. My job was to inspect incoming shipments, verify manifests against actual cargo, and look for anything illegal or suspicious. It was routine work most of the time. 99% of shipments were exactly what the paperwork said they were. But that 1%, that's what kept you sharp. That's where you earned your salary. June 17th, 2008. A Tuesday. Hot as hell. Humidity so thick you could barely breathe. I was assigned to inspect a shipment that had come in on a cargo vessel from Panama. The manifest listed the shipper as Tidewater Maritime Solutions, destination a warehouse address in Metairie. I'd never heard of Tidewater Maritime before. That wasn't unusual. New shipping companies popped up all the time. But something about the name stuck with me. Maybe it was the generic sound of it. Maritime Solutions. Like it was trying too hard to sound legitimate. The cargo was listed as industrial equipment. 2 20-foot containers. I pulled the first one for inspection, had the longshoreman set it down in the inspection area. Standard procedure. I unlocked the container, broke the customs seal, and swung the doors open. The smell hit me first. Not rot, not decay, something else. Chemical. Preservative. Like formaldehyde, but sweeter. Underneath it was something organic that made my stomach turn. I pulled out my flashlight and shined it inside. The container was full of crates, wooden crates. Old-fashioned looking, the kind you'd see in a museum or an antique store. Each one was about 2 feet square, carefully stacked and secured with rope. Industrial equipment, my ass. I called over my partner, a young officer named Davis who'd been with Harbor Police for about 2 years. He took one whiff and made a face. "That's not equipment," he said. "No, it's not. Help me get one of these down." We pulled down one of the crates. It was heavy, maybe 40 pounds. I used a crowbar to pry open the top. Inside were jars. Glass jars, the kind you'd use for canning preserves. Maybe 20 of them packed in straw. Each jar was filled with clear liquid, and floating in each jar was a human organ. I'm not squeamish. I've seen bodies. I've seen crime scenes. But there was something deeply wrong about those jars. The organs were too perfect, too well preserved, and they were old. You could tell by the glass, by the way the specimens looked. These weren't medical specimens from a hospital or research facility. These were antiques. Davis backed away. Jesus Christ, what the hell is this? I don't know, but we're shutting this down. We called in our supervisor, Lieutenant Hargrove. He took one look and immediately contacted federal authorities. Within 2 hours, we had FBI, Homeland Security, and the local coroner's office all over the container. The coroner examined the specimens on site. His name was Dr. Raymond Lake, a serious man in his 50s who'd seen everything New Orleans could throw at him. But even he was disturbed. These are human organs, he confirmed. Hearts, livers, kidneys, portions of intestine, all preserved in what appears to be a formaldehyde solution. The preservation technique is consistent with medical practices from the late 1800s. The late 1800s? Davis asked. Dr. Lake nodded. The jars, the solution, the way the specimens were prepared. This is Victorian-era medical preservation. Museums have collections like this. Medical schools used to create them for teaching purposes. But why would someone be shipping them now? I asked. That, Dr. Lake said, I cannot tell you. But these specimens are over 100 years old. They have significant historical value, and they were removed from human bodies without the consent that would be required today. We opened the rest of the crates. All the same, jars and jars of preserved organs, hundreds of them, all Victorian-era medical specimens. The second container was identical. Over 1,000 preserved human organs, shipped from Panama, destination a warehouse in Metairie. The FBI took over the investigation. They traced the shipper, Tidewater Maritime Solutions, to a business address in Panama City. The address turned out to be a mail drop. No physical office, no employees, no corporate records beyond the bare minimum required to register a shipping company. The destination warehouse in Metairie was abandoned. Had been for 6 years. Nobody had paid rent on it since before Katrina. The shipping company was a ghost. The cargo was over a century old. And nobody could explain why anyone would transport Victorian medical specimens through modern international shipping channels to an abandoned warehouse in Louisiana. The case went nowhere. The FBI cataloged the specimens, tried to trace their origin, came up empty. After 3 months, the investigation was closed. The organs were turned over to a medical museum in Baton Rouge. Case classified as smuggling of historical artifacts, shipper unknown, no arrests made. But I couldn't let it go. I started digging into Tidewater Maritime on my own time. Used every database I had access to, called contacts in other ports, searched shipping records going back years. And I found something. Tidewater Maritime Solutions had shipped cargo through the port of New Orleans 3 times before. All before Katrina. All to the same abandoned warehouse. All listed as industrial equipment. But those shipments had never been inspected. They'd been released to the consignee without examination because the paperwork was in order, and there was no reason to suspect anything wrong. What had been in those containers? Where had they gone? Who had picked them up? I couldn't find out. The records were incomplete, damaged in the flood, or simply missing. But Tidewater had been operating through New Orleans for at least a decade. Shipping something. Collecting something. I reported my findings to Lieutenant Hargrove. He appreciated the initiative, but told me to drop it. The case is closed, Robertson. FBI handled it. Let it go. But I didn't let it go. I kept the name in the back of my mind. Tidewater Maritime Solutions. I watched for it in shipping manifests, flagged it in the system, made a note in my personal files. If they shipped through New Orleans once, they might do it again. But they never did. At least not while I was there. In 2009, I got an opportunity for advancement. A position opened up with the Port of Seattle Police. Better pay, better benefits, a chance to work one of the busiest ports on the West Coast. I applied, got the job, and moved to Washington State in April. Seattle was different from New Orleans in every way. The climate, the culture, the cargo. The Port of Seattle handled massive container ships from Asia, bulk cargo from Alaska, everything flowing through the Pacific Northwest. It was a bigger operation, more volume, more complexity. I settled into the new job, learned the local procedures, made connections with my new colleagues. The work was similar, but the scale was larger. More containers to inspect, more shipments to track, more potential for things to slip through the cracks. 6 months into my new assignment, I was conducting a routine inspection on a cargo shipment from South Korea. The manifest listed the shipper as Tidewater Maritime Solutions. I froze when I saw the name. It couldn't be the same company. Tidewater Maritime was a Panamanian shell operation that had shipped Victorian medical specimens to Louisiana. What would they be doing shipping cargo from South Korea to Seattle? But there it was on the manifest. Same company name, different cargo description, different origin point. But the same ghost shipper I'd found in New Orleans. The cargo was listed as agricultural products, 2 40-foot containers this time. Destination was a warehouse address in Tacoma. I pulled both containers for immediate inspection. My supervisor, a veteran port police officer named Captain Zoe Morrison, noticed my urgency. Something wrong with this shipment, Robertson? I know this shipper. Found them in New Orleans last year. They were smuggling historical artifacts. Human remains. Human remains. Preserved organs. Victorian-era medical specimens. The company turned out to be a front. No real business address, no legitimate operation. And now they're shipping agricultural products from Korea? That's what the manifest says. But I don't believe it. Captain Morrison authorized a full inspection. We opened the first container together. The smell was different this time. Not formaldehyde. Something else. Decay, but controlled decay. Like compost or fertilizer. But underneath it was that same organic wrongness I'd smelled in New Orleans. Inside were crates again. But these were different. Modern plastic crates, the kind used for shipping produce. They were marked with Korean characters and shipping labels that matched the manifest. I opened the first crate. It was full of jars. Not Victorian glass jars this time. Modern mason jars, the kind you could buy at any hardware store, but sealed tight, filled with clear liquid. And each jar contained teeth, human teeth, hundreds of them. Different sizes, different ages. Baby teeth, adult teeth, wisdom teeth. Some with fillings, some without. Some yellowed with age, others newer. All collected in jars, preserved in solution, packed carefully in straw. Captain Morrison stared at the contents. What in the hell? We opened more crates. All the same, jar after jar of human teeth. We opened the second container, same thing. We estimated over 5,000 teeth across both containers. Thousands of people's dental remains, collected and preserved and shipped from South Korea to Washington State. This time, I called the FBI immediately. Same agent I'd worked with in New Orleans, a woman named Special Agent Teresa Vance, who specialized in human trafficking and smuggling. She remembered the New Orleans case. Tidewater Maritime, she said when I told her. I thought we'd seen the last of them. They're still operating. Different origin point, different cargo, but same company. Same ghost operation. What's the cargo this time? Teeth. Human teeth. Thousands of them. She was silent for a moment. I'm on the next flight to Seattle. Agent Vance arrived with a team of FBI forensic specialists. They spent 2 days examining the cargo, documenting everything, trying to trace the origin of the specimens. The teeth were real. Human teeth, removed from mouths, cleaned, and preserved. Some were recent, extracted within the last few years. Others were decades old. The forensic odontologist they brought in estimated the collection spanned from the 1950s to the present, but there was no way to identify the individuals. Teeth don't have DNA markers like bone or tissue, and even if they did, there was no database to match them against. Agent Vance traced the shipment back to South Korea. The container had originated from a warehouse in Busan, shipped through legitimate channels with proper documentation. But when Korean authorities raided the warehouse, it was empty. No records, no personnel, no evidence of who had been operating there. The destination warehouse in Tacoma was, once again, abandoned. Had been for 8 years. Same pattern as New Orleans. The teeth were confiscated as evidence. The investigation continued for months. And again, it went nowhere. No arrests, no explanation, no way to trace who was behind Tidewater Maritime or why they were collecting human remains. But now I had a pattern. New Orleans, 2008. Victorian-era preserved organs. Seattle, 2009. Modern collection of human teeth spanning decades. 2 different types of human remains. 2 different ports. Same ghost shipper, same abandoned warehouses. I made a decision. If Tidewater Maritime showed up again, in any port I worked at, I was going to be ready. I was going to track them. I was going to find out what they were really doing. I spent my off hours researching the company. Searched international shipping records, contacted port authorities in other countries, followed every lead I could find. And I found more shipments. Tidewater Maritime had operated through ports all over the world. Hamburg, Rotterdam, Singapore, Sydney. Always ghost shipments to abandoned warehouses. Always listed as innocuous cargo. And when inspected, always containing something disturbing. A shipment in Hamburg in 2006, jars of human hair. A shipment in Rotterdam in 2005, preserved embryos. A shipment in Singapore in 2007, human bone fragments. Nobody had connected the dots because the shipments were spread across different countries, different jurisdictions, different years. But it was the same operation. Tidewater Maritime was collecting human remains from all over the world. Different types, different time periods, but always human remains. The question was why? What were they doing with all this? Who was behind it? And where was it all going? I reported everything to Agent Vance. She was grateful but frustrated. "We can't build a case on this," she said. "Every shipment dead ends. No physical address, no employees, no paper trail beyond the bare minimum. Whoever is running Tidewater Maritime knows exactly how to stay invisible. But they're still operating. They'll ship again. I know. And when they do, we'll be ready." In 2010, I got another promotion. Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, the biggest port complex in the United States. The opportunity of a lifetime. I took the job, moved to New Jersey in March. Started working the most intense cargo operation I'd ever seen. Massive container ships, hundreds of thousands of shipments per month, cargo from every country on Earth. And I waited. I knew Tidewater Maritime would show up eventually. If they'd operated in New Orleans and Seattle, if they'd shipped through ports all over the world, they'd eventually ship through New York. I flagged their name in every database, set up alerts, monitored manifests obsessively. And in October 2010, it happened. A shipment from Tidewater Maritime Solutions. Origin, Netherlands. Cargo listed as machine parts. Destination, warehouse in Newark. I'd been waiting 2 years for this. This time I was going to find out the truth. The shipment arrived on October 12, 2010. Container ship from Rotterdam. Standard routing through the North Atlantic. The Tidewater Maritime containers were flagged in the system the moment the ship docked. I didn't wait for assignment. I took the inspection myself. My supervisor at Port Authority, Captain James Riley, knew about my history with Tidewater. I'd briefed him when I started the job, explained the pattern I'd been tracking. He was skeptical, but supportive. "You really think this is some kind of organized operation?" he'd asked. "I know it is. 2 ports, 2 shipments of human remains, same ghost company. Now they're here. 3rd port, I want to know what they're shipping this time." When the manifest came through listing machine parts, Captain Riley gave me full authorization to conduct a comprehensive inspection. Machine parts, he said, reading the manifest. That's what they said last time? New Orleans was industrial equipment. Seattle was agricultural products. But it's never what the manifest says. Then, let's find out what it really is. We pulled 3 40-foot containers from the ship, all marked with Tidewater Maritime shipping labels, all bound for the same warehouse address in Newark, all manifested as machine parts. I assembled a team, 2 Port Authority officers, a K-9 unit, and I requested Agent Vance from the FBI. She caught a train up from D.C. the same day. When she arrived at the dock and saw the containers, she looked at me with an expression I couldn't read, something between determination and dread. "Third time," she said. "Whatever they're doing, they're not stopping. No. They're escalating. New Orleans was historical specimens. Seattle was modern collections. I think this is going to be worse." We opened the first container. No smell this time. No chemical preservatives, no decay. Just the scent of treated wood and industrial lubricant. For a moment, I thought maybe this shipment really was machine parts. Maybe Tidewater had legitimate cargo mixed in with their other operations. Then I saw what was inside. Coffins. The container was full of coffins. Simple pine boxes, unfinished wood, stacked carefully and secured with straps. 47 of them, all identical, all empty. Empty coffins shipped as machine parts from the Netherlands to New Jersey. Agent Vance stepped into the container, examined one of the coffins closely. These are new, fresh pine, modern construction, made within the last few months. "Why would anyone ship empty coffins?" one of my officers asked. "That's what we need to find out." We started removing the coffins, setting them in the inspection area. As we pulled down the 5th one, I noticed something. The wood was warm. Not sun-warmed. The container had been in the ship's hold, temperature-controlled, no direct heat source. But the coffin felt warm to the touch, like it had been occupied recently, like body heat was still radiating from the wood. I opened it. The inside of the lid had something carved into it. Names. 3 names, scratched into the wood with something sharp. Crude letters, desperate work. Zoe Lake, Seattle. Michael Torres, Houston. Amanda Brooks, Philadelphia. Below the names was a date. October 8th, 2010. 4 days ago. Agent Vance looked over my shoulder. "Those are names of missing persons. Current cases. You're sure?" "I'm sure. Zoe Lake disappeared from Seattle 3 weeks ago. Michael Torres vanished from Houston 2 months ago. Amanda Brooks went missing from Philadelphia in August." She was already on her phone, pulling up case files. As she read, her face went pale. "All 3 cases are still open. All 3 are adults who disappeared without a trace. No bodies found. No evidence of foul play. No leads. They were in this coffin, or someone who knew about them was." She looked at the other coffins stacked in the container. "We need to check every single one." We opened them all. 47 coffins. 47 sets of names carved inside the lids. Different handwriting, different tools used, but all the same desperate message. Names and dates. Every single name was a current missing person. People who'd disappeared in the last 6 months from cities all over the United States. New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Miami, Denver, Atlanta. 47 missing people, their names carved into the insides of empty coffins, shipped from the Netherlands to New Jersey. "This isn't smuggling," Agent Vance said quietly. "This is a message. Someone is telling us they have these people. Or had them," I said, past tense. "The coffins are empty now." She looked at me. "You think they're dead? I think whoever carved those names was in these coffins when they were shipped. And now they're not. So either they escaped or they were removed." Either way, this is evidence of kidnapping. Multiple kidnappings. Federal jurisdiction. We opened the second container. More coffins. Another 47. Another set of names, all current missing persons. Different cities, different dates, but all from 2010. The third container was the same. 47 coffins, 94 names total carved into the wood. 141 missing persons, all connected to empty coffins shipped by a ghost company to an abandoned warehouse. Agent Vance was making calls, coordinating with the field offices across the country, cross-referencing every name against missing persons databases. The scope of what we were looking at was staggering. "This is the biggest human trafficking case I've ever seen," she said. "If these names are real, if these people were actually transported in these coffins, then Tidewater Maritime is responsible for kidnappings spanning the entire country over multiple years." "Not just the country," I said. "The organs in New Orleans were from the 1800s. The teeth in Seattle went back to the 1950s. This operation has been running for over a century." She stared at me. "That's impossible. No criminal organization lasts that long. Leadership changes, operations get discovered, people talk. You can't maintain something like this for 150 years. But that's exactly what the evidence shows. 3 ports, 3 different types of cargo, all human remains. Different time periods, but same method. Collection, preservation, transportation. They've been doing this for generations. Then, who are they? Who runs an operation like this? I don't know, but the warehouse address might tell us." The destination address was in Newark, an industrial area near the port. Captain Riley assembled a tactical team and we drove out there with Agent Vance and a dozen FBI agents. The address was an old shipping warehouse, 3 stories tall, brick construction, probably built in the 1940s. The windows were boarded up, the loading docks sealed with rusted metal doors. It looked like it hadn't been used in decades. We breached the main entrance. Inside was darkness. Our flashlights cut through the black, illuminating a massive open space. The warehouse floor was empty except for dust and debris. Pigeons roosted in the rafters. Water damage stained the concrete floor. It looked abandoned, just like the warehouses in New Orleans and Seattle. But as we spread out searching the space, one of the FBI agents called out, "I've got something, back corner." We converged on his location. He was standing in front of a freight elevator, the old-fashioned kind with a metal cage door. The elevator shaft descended into the floor, going down below ground level. "There's a basement," he said. The elevator wasn't working. The power to the building was cut off decades ago. But there were stairs next to the shaft, a narrow, concrete stairwell descending into darkness. We went down. The basement was huge, bigger than the warehouse floor above. It stretched out in all directions, supported by thick concrete pillars. And it wasn't empty. It was full of crates, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Wooden crates, plastic crates, metal containers, all stacked carefully, all labeled with shipping codes and dates. Some of the labels were so old the paper had yellowed and crumbled. We started opening crates at random. The first one contained jars of preserved organs. Victorian-era specimens, just like New Orleans. The second contained teeth. Thousands of teeth in mason jars, just like Seattle. The third contained human hair. Braided, bundled, preserved in sealed bags. The fourth contained bone fragments, sorted by type, labeled by size. The fifth contained vials of blood, dated from the 1960s, still liquid, still preserved. Every crate we opened contained human remains, different types, different time periods, but all human. And based on the sheer volume of crates in the basement, we were looking at remains from thousands of people, maybe tens of thousands. This is a collection. Agent Vance said. Her voice was shaking. Someone has been collecting human remains for over a century, shipping them from all over the world, storing them here. But why? One of the FBI agents asked. What's the purpose? What are they doing with all this? I moved deeper into the basement, past rows of crates, following the labels. The dates got older as I walked. 1990s, 1980s, 1970s. The crates became more primitive, the labels more faded. And then I found the oldest section. The crates here were ancient, rotting wood held together by rusted metal bands. The labels were handwritten in ink, dated from the 1850s and 1860s, and the shipping company name was familiar, not Tidewater Maritime Solutions. That was a modern name. But the original name was there, barely legible on water-damaged wood. Tidewater Shipping Company. The same operation, the same business. Running continuously for over 150 years. I opened one of the oldest crates. Inside were documents. Shipping manifests, bills of lading, correspondence. All dated from the 1850s. And at the bottom of the crate was a ledger. I pulled it out carefully. The leather binding was cracked and stained, but the pages inside were still readable. I opened it to the first page. The title was written in elegant script. Tidewater Shipping Company Inventory Ledger commenced 1856. Below that was a list. Names. Thousands of names. Men, women, children, ages, weights, points of origin. And next to each name was a designation. Collected, processed, shipped. This wasn't a smuggling operation. This wasn't human trafficking. This was something else, something older, something that had been collecting people for over 150 years. I turned the page. More names, more designations. And then I found an entry that made my blood run cold. Cargo Manifest. June, 1856. Origin. West Africa. Destination. New Orleans. Vessel. Esperanza Cargo. Type. Future inventory, future inventory. I kept reading. The ledger detailed shipments spanning decades. Not just from Africa, from everywhere. Ireland, China, Mexico, Eastern Europe. People collected from all over the world, processed into inventory, shipped to destinations unknown. This was a slave ship operation, but not the historical slave trade we learned about in school. This was something that had never stopped. They'd just changed their methods, evolved, adapted. The old slave ships carried human cargo openly. This operation had learned to hide it, break it down. Ship pieces instead of whole people, organs, teeth, hair, bone, disassembled and transported through legitimate channels. But the coffins, the recent coffins with names carved inside, those weren't pieces. Those were whole people. The operation was changing again, getting bolder, or more desperate. I heard Agent Vance calling my name. I went back to where the team was gathered. She'd found something else, a section of the basement that was different from the rest. Newer, cleaner, and locked behind a heavy metal door. "We need to get this open," she said. One of the tactical officers used a hydraulic ram. The door buckled, then gave way. Inside was a room maybe 20 feet square. Climate controlled, though the power was off now. The walls were lined with filing cabinets, and in the center of the room was a desk with a computer. A modern computer, recently used. The power cable was still plugged into a dead outlet. We found a generator in the warehouse and got it running. Powered up the computer, no password protection. Whoever had been using this hadn't expected anyone to find it. The files on the computer were shipping manifests. Thousands of them. Tidewater Maritime shipments going back to 2000, when they'd started using the modern company name. And future shipments, scheduled manifest for deliveries through 2011. Agent Vance scrolled through the list. All different destinations, ports all over the world. Different cargo descriptions. But the pattern was clear. Every shipment contained human remains, and one shipment was scheduled for tomorrow. October 13th, 2010. Port of New York. Cargo listed as medical equipment. Destination, international shipment to undisclosed location. That's tomorrow, she said. They're shipping something tomorrow. From this port, what's the cargo? She clicked on the manifest details. Her face went white. The cargo is listed as 47 specimens, fresh collection, and there's a note in the file. What does it say? Final delivery. Project completion. All inventory to be consolidated at primary facility. Primary facility? Where's that? There's no address, just coordinates. She wrote them down. We need to trace these. I looked at the computer screen. 47 specimens. Fresh collection. The same number as the coffins. The same number of names carved in the wood. They still have them. The missing people. They're shipping them out tomorrow. We need to stop that shipment, Agent Vance said. She was already on the phone to the FBI Operations Center. But even as she talked, I saw something else on the computer. A folder labeled Personnel. I opened it. Inside were files on people. Names, photographs, personal information, and job titles. Collection Agent, New Orleans Collection Agent, Seattle Collection Agent, Newark. Inspection Liaison. Port of New Orleans Inspection Liaison. Port of Seattle. Inspection Liaison, Port of New York. The last file made me stop breathing. It was my file, my photograph, my employment history. Every port I'd worked at, every inspection I'd conducted, every report I'd filed. They'd been tracking me. The entire time. They knew I was investigating them. They knew I'd found their shipments in 3 different ports. And the job title next to my name said something that made my skin crawl. Potential acquisition. They weren't just watching me investigate them, they were planning to collect me. Agent Vance saw my expression change. What did you find? I turned the computer screen toward her, showed her my file, showed her the designation. She read it and immediately pulled her weapon. Everyone out. Now. This is a trap. But we were already surrounded. The lights came on. Not the generator we'd brought. The building's main power. Every light in the basement blazed to life, blinding us after the darkness. When my vision cleared, I saw them. There were maybe 20 of them. Men and women in normal clothes, business casual, looking like office workers or warehouse staff. They'd come down the stairs silently while we were distracted by the computer. And now they stood in a semicircle around us, blocking our exit. They weren't armed. They weren't threatening. They just stood there, watching us with expressions that were calm and patient. One of them stepped forward. A woman in her 50s, gray hair pulled back, wearing a simple black dress. She looked like someone's grandmother, but her eyes were cold. Agent Vance, she said. Inspector Robertson, we've been expecting you. Who are you? Agent Vance demanded. Her weapon was trained on the woman, but she didn't seem concerned. My name is Catherine Marston. I'm the current director of operations for the Tidewater organization. And you've been investigating us for quite some time now. The Tidewater organization? Catherine smiled. That's what we call ourselves internally. Tidewater Maritime Solutions is just one of our many corporate facades. We've had different names over the years, different structures. But the organization itself has been operating continuously since 1856. You're trafficking people, Agent Vance said. Kidnapping, murder, smuggling human remains across international borders. You're going to federal prison for the rest of your life. Catherine's smile didn't waver. I don't think so. You see, what we do isn't trafficking, it's collection. And it's not illegal because what we collect was never legally human to begin with. What the hell does that mean? Inspector Robertson found our original ledger. Did you read the designation? Future inventory. That's what we collect. People who were never meant to exist. Paradoxes. Temporal anomalies. Individuals whose presence in the timeline creates instability. I stared at her. You're insane. Am I? How do you explain our operation lasting 154 years with no arrests, no exposure, no failure? How do you explain shipping Victorian-era organs that are still perfectly preserved? Teeth that span 70 years but show no degradation? How do you explain empty coffins that were recently occupied by people who carved their names in desperation, yet left no DNA, no fingerprints, no physical evidence? Because what we collect isn't entirely real. They exist, yes, but they exist in a state of temporal flux. They were created by paradoxes, by time loops, by decisions that erase themselves. And if we don't collect them, they cause problems. Reality problems. One of my tactical officers spoke up. This is bullshit. You're just a human trafficking ring with a crazy story. Catherine looked at him. What's your name, officer? He hesitated. Martinez, Officer Martinez, Catherine said. Do you remember your sister? What? Your sister? Angela Martinez. Do you remember her? Martinez's face went pale. How do you know about Angela? Because she was one of ours. Collected in 2004 from San Diego. You don't remember her because she was a paradox. She was born from a timeline that no longer exists. But you feel her absence, don't you? That sense that something is missing from your childhood memories. That feeling that you should have a sibling but don't. Martinez lowered his weapon. His hand was shaking. We collect them before they cause damage, Catherine continued. Before the timeline tries to correct itself violently. We process them, preserve them, and store them safely until the paradox can be resolved. It's not murder, it's maintenance. We're keeping reality stable. Then what about the recent shipments? Agent Vance asked. Those people weren't paradoxes. They were real people with real families who are looking for them. Were they? Catherine pulled a tablet from her pocket, pulled up a file. Zoe Lake, disappeared from Seattle. Did you know her family doesn't remember having a daughter? We checked. Her apartment was leased under a name that doesn't exist in any database older than 2 years. Her employment records show she started working at a company that has no record of hiring her. That's not possible. It's very possible when someone is a temporal echo. A person who exists because of a loop that's closing. Zoe Lake was created by a decision her future self prevented. She's literally impossible. And keeping her in the timeline would have caused a cascade failure. You're saying all 47 missing people were paradoxes? No. About half of them were. The other half were related to those paradoxes. Family members, loved ones, people who would ask too many questions. We don't like collateral collection, but sometimes it's necessary. That's still kidnapping. Catherine shrugged. Call it what you want. The timeline doesn't care about legal definitions. It only cares about stability. And we've been maintaining that stability for over a century. I'd been listening to all this, trying to process it, trying to find the logical flaw in her insane explanation. But something else bothered me more. Why did you let us find the warehouse? I asked. Why leave the computer running, the files accessible? You could have cleaned this place out months ago. Catherine looked at me. Because you were supposed to find it, Inspector Robertson. We've been guiding you for 2 years. Every shipment you discovered was meant to be discovered. We wanted you to see the pattern, to understand the scope, to realize what we do. Why? Because you're one of us. Or you will be. She pulled up another file on her tablet. Showed me a photograph of a man I didn't recognize. "This is David Robertson," she said. "Your great-great-great-grandfather. He was a shipping clerk in New Orleans in 1856, and he was the first director of operations for Tidewater. He founded the organization, created the collection protocols, established the preservation methods. This is you, Inspector Robertson. Not a coincidence, not random. You were always meant to find us. It's in your blood. Your grandfather worked for us. Your father knew about us but refused to join. And now you've spent 2 years tracking us across 3 ports, discovering exactly what we wanted you to discover. You're lying, am I? Check your family history. Really dig into it. You'll find the connections, the gaps in the records, the ancestors who disappeared or worked in shipping or had careers that don't quite make sense." She walked closer to me. Agent Vance raised her weapon, but Catherine ignored her. "We're offering you a position," Catherine said. "Director of Field Operations. You'd oversee collection agents in all 50 states, coordinate with our international branches. You'd be part of something that matters, something that keeps reality functioning. I'm not joining a kidnapping ring, even if it means saving the timeline, even if every person we collect is someone who shouldn't exist, even if letting them stay would cause catastrophic temporal damage." I looked at Agent Vance. She looked as lost as I felt. "Prove it," I said. "Prove that these people are paradoxes. Show me evidence." Catherine smiled. "We will. The shipment tomorrow, 47 specimens scheduled for final delivery. You want proof? Be at the dock when that shipment arrives. See what happens when paradoxes try to exist in the same space. See what the timeline does to correct itself." She gestured to her people. They stepped aside, opening a path to the stairs. "You're free to go," Catherine said. "Take your evidence. Take the computer files. Share them with whoever you want. But be at Dock 17 tomorrow at noon. Watch the shipment. Then decide if you believe me." We left. Nobody stopped us. We climbed the stairs, crossed the warehouse floor, got back to our vehicles. The entire time I expected gunfire, expected an ambush. But nothing happened. They let us go. Agent Vance was already coordinating with the FBI. Full investigation, federal warrants, tactical teams mobilized. They'd be back at the warehouse within hours with 100 agents and enough firepower to storm a fortress. But when they returned, the basement was empty. All the crates were gone. The computer was gone. The filing cabinets were gone. There was nothing but an empty concrete space. Catherine and her people had vanished. Tidewater had disappeared again. The only evidence we had was what we'd taken. Photographs, the files I'd copied from the computer, the testimony of everyone who'd been in that basement. But without physical evidence, without the crates of remains, without the documents, we had no case. The FBI opened an investigation, but it went nowhere. Again, Tidewater had evaded us. Again. But there was still tomorrow's shipment. October 13th, 2010. Dock 17. Noon. I was there with the Federal Task Force, FBI, Homeland Security, Port Authority Police. We had the dock locked down. Every ship arriving was inspected. Every container was scanned. We were ready to intercept whatever Tidewater tried to deliver. At 11:30 a.m., a container ship arrived from Rotterdam. Different ship than before, different crew, different manifest. But I recognized the shipping codes. Tidewater Maritime. We stopped the ship before it could dock. Boarded it with a full tactical team. The captain was confused, cooperative. He showed us his cargo manifest. Standard shipment. Machine parts, agricultural products, consumer goods. Nothing unusual. But there, buried in the middle of the manifest, was one container marked differently. Medical equipment. Shipper, Tidewater Maritime Solutions. We pulled the container, set it down on the dock, surrounded it with agents. Agent Vance and I approached together. "Whatever's in there," she said, "we stop it now." I unlocked the container, broke the seal, pulled the doors open. Inside were the coffins, 47 of them, but these weren't empty. They were occupied. Through the gaps in the wooden lids I could see movement, hear sounds. People were inside, alive, conscious. "Open them," Agent Vance ordered. We pried open the first coffin. A woman was inside, young, maybe 25, wearing torn clothing, eyes wide with terror. She looked up at us, tried to speak, but her voice was wrong. Distorted, like it was coming from far away. "Help," she said, but the word echoed, repeated, layered over itself in different tones. We pulled her out. The moment she left the coffin, she started to flicker. Her form became unstable, transparent one moment and solid the next. She looked down at her hands and screamed, and then she disappeared. Not dead, not transported, just ceased to exist, like someone had deleted her from reality. We opened the second coffin. Same thing. A man, this time. He lasted maybe 10 seconds before he flickered out of existence. The third coffin, the fourth, the fifth. Every single person we pulled from those coffins vanished within moments. 47 people, all of them temporally unstable, all of them unable to exist outside the controlled environment of the coffins. Catherine had been telling the truth. They weren't human trafficking victims. They were paradoxes. People who existed in a quantum state, neither fully real nor fully absent. And the moment they were exposed to normal causality, reality corrected itself. The last person we pulled from the coffins was a young man. He looked at me with desperate eyes. "I remember now," he said. His voice was layered but clearing. "I wasn't supposed to be born. My parents never met. I'm a ghost. I'm an echo of a decision that was unmade." He reached out and grabbed my arm. His hand felt wrong, too light, like he had no mass. "Don't let them take you," he said. "The organization, they're not saving us. They're using us. The collection, the preservation, it's not for stability. It's for something else, something they haven't told you." "What?" But he flickered, started to fade. His grip on my arm weakened. "The primary facility," he whispered. "The coordinates. That's where they take everyone. That's where the real operation is. Stop them there. Stop." He was gone. All 47 people from the coffins had vanished, ceased to exist. Reality had corrected itself. Agent Vance stood there, staring at the empty coffins. "What just happened? I don't know. But we have coordinates, the primary facility. That's where we need to go." We traced the coordinates from the computer files. They pointed to a location in the Atlantic Ocean, maybe 200 miles east of Virginia. Nothing on the maps. No island, no oil platform, nothing. But satellite imagery showed something, a structure, underwater, massive, the size of a small city. The FBI organized an operation. Naval support, deep-sea diving teams, a full investigation. They were planning to go to those coordinates, find out what Tidewater had built, shut it down. But I never found out what they discovered. Before the operation launched, I received a letter, handwritten, no return address, postmarked from Panama. It was from Catherine. "Inspector Robertson, you witnessed the correction. You saw what happens to paradoxes who exist uncontained. We don't collect them for profit. We don't collect them for power. We collect them because reality demands it. But you were right to be suspicious. The young man who spoke to you was correct. The primary facility is not just for storage, it's for conversion. We take the temporal energy of paradoxes and we use it to stabilize other timelines, to prevent larger cascades, to keep all of reality functioning. Your ancestor founded this organization with good intentions, but over the years the work has become something darker, something necessary but terrible. You have a choice to make. Join us and help maintain what must be maintained, or walk away and let someone else do the work that reality demands. Either way, Tidewater will continue. We always have. We always will. Catherine Marston. I burned the letter. The FBI operation went to the coordinates. They found the underwater facility. But when they tried to enter, something happened. A temporal event, the report said. 27 agents were lost. The survivors couldn't explain what they'd seen. The operation was classified. The investigation was closed. Tidewater Maritime Solutions was flagged in every database, but no more shipments have been found. I still work as a cargo inspector. I still watch for their name in manifests. And sometimes, late at night, I think about what Catherine offered me. I think about the paradoxes, the people who shouldn't exist, the temporal damage they cause by being. I think about reality and what it takes to keep it stable. And I think about my great-great-great-grandfather, who founded an organization that collects human beings to feed to the timeline. Some cargo shouldn't be inspected. Some shipments should never arrive. And some jobs are better left to people who can live with what they find.